Welcome to the What's Next podcast. Today, Mike and Bryan sit down with Spencer Sekulin and talk about his life and work as a writer, creator, medic, and coffee connoisseur. They also talk about his upcoming life adventure of attending med school in Ireland. And finally, they ask the question, what's next? So if you're ready, buckle up and let's go.
Welcome to the What's Next podcast, sponsored by Frontline Forward. Frontline Forward, community multidisciplinary wellness center. Our doors are open to absolutely everybody, but we have a definite passion to help our first responders and military personnel stay and be healthy. I'm here with my good friend, Mr. Michael Hectus.
How are you, buddy? Good to see you again.
I'm doing okay. You?
Awesome. I'm doing well. I mean, we're slowly sliding through summer, but weather's great, and there's still lots ahead. So yeah, excited. And I just wanted to say, we've been watching the stats coming through, and again, we're getting a lot of viewers, so that's great, and a lot of feedback too in the last couple podcasts that went out there, which is really good. Especially with Brittany's was out there, we had a number of young teens reach out and say, "That's where I was, that's where I am," and so I really appreciate those that are listening in, and hopefully we can give you some guidance, or at least get you in touch with somebody that might be able to at least listen. And that's what it's all about. So, yeah, as I say, our podcast is all about stories, and stories that connect us all in some way. We always feel that our story is we're the only ones going through it. So we really do appreciate our guests coming on and sharing their stories, because a lot of people don't think there's much to it. But you know what? No, your story is somebody else's too. So it's great to connect that way. So who we got with us today? We have Mr. Spencer Sekulin. Did I say that right?
It's more Sekulin, but Sekulin's okay. Sekulin's okay. It's not the worst it's been called. I'll tell you that.
I was just gonna say, yeah, my name's been slaughtered before too, so that's all right.
Purposely and
just the way it's spelled. People mess it up all the time. There's a silent E, I think.
Well, Spencer, thanks a lot for being on. I really appreciate it. Yeah, appreciate, times are most special, special and a specific commodity on this planet, and we don't pay enough attention to that. So I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day and to come with us and share your story. Now, we were talking earlier, and your response, it's just like everybody else's that comes on, to be very honest with you. I told you that I thought that you had a pretty special story, and you went, yeah, well, I guess so. And it's the same way with everybody. We don't take enough credit ourselves, or identify what we're doing as a special thing. And I think you got a pretty special story here that people are going to want to hear and know how you got to where you are today. By the way, love the shirt.
Thank you. That's I've got your back 911. I guess you all know the charity, I suppose.
There you go. Love it.
There we go. So
yeah, no, it's awesome.
We were sitting here chatting earlier too, and one of the things, and I want to get right into it. So you're here from Ontario, born and raised in Ontario.
Yep, born in Markham. Grew up in Newmarket. Been around here ever since.
Right on. So large family, small family, brothers, sisters.
Yeah, I have two brothers, so I'm the middle one.
Oh,
with all
just
the
like
connotations,
me. There you
all
go.
the connotations that has. Yeah, exactly. Whatever that means.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Awesome. So the one thing that when we got chatting earlier is that you said you loved to read as a young child, and I think that's brilliant. I mean, my youngest daughter, she was a big reader too. Absolutely loved to read. She went in honors English, and now she does a lot of stuff writing and that, and editing and working in voiceovers and stuff like that. So she really had a passion for reading as well. So I love that. What were some of the books that you were passionate about when you were younger?
Well, I'd say whatever my mom introduced me to, right? Awesome. She was the reader in the family, and she made a point of reading to us from as early as possible, right? So I think it was the Hardy Boys, if you heard about those guys. The old classic, right? She'd read those to us during bedtime. So that was the first stuff that we really got into on a regular basis. And then things like Ian Colfer and Terry Brooks, the Old Island series, things like that kind of got me started. And then, of course, the Harry Potter and all the other fantasy books that kids really liked back in the late 90s, early 2000s, right?
Right.
And it just stuck, right? Reading was always, in some ways, an escape, but in other ways, an adventure as well. I'd always look forward to doing it, after school or before bed. It'd always be my ritual. So I've always been reading, and I think I always will be.
Yeah.
So, Yeah.
I think that's so important. Like I said, with our kids these days, I mean, they spend a lot of time on their computers, and hopefully they're doing books on tape or whatever. But I think that's very cool that you were. And I think we should stress that more and more. Is that I think it's great for young kids to be reading more and more all the time. Like
it is very important. Yeah, and it's extremely important just for their development as well. And there's plenty of peer-reviewed research on that, on the positive effects of just reading to your kids from as early as when they were born, right? There were very, very illuminating studies on just the positive influence that reading has on their development into their teens and 20s and beyond that. So very important. Very important.
Awesome. Yeah, that was one of the things that when I was in high school, they were trying to get me to read Man of La Mancha, Shakespeare, and I went, that's not what I want to read. So English was one of those subjects where I said, can I pick a book? And yeah, you go ahead and pick a book. So that's, again, I think it's important you find something that you're very, very passionate about and something that really speaks to your heart and soul and get into that and delve into it. So that was awesome.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah, and then in your bio that you sent off to us, Spencer, like I said, we're just trying to get to know you here first, and then we'll ask the question as we get into the whole podcast here. But besides reading, you state here about homemade coffee. You like making homemade coffee?
Yeah, I'm a bit of a snob or a connoisseur.
Okay.
I connoisseur is a better word for that.
Right.
I gravitated away from the whole McDonald's, Tim Hortons thing to grinding it myself and having a ritual to it. So yeah, I guess that makes me a connoisseur in some way. So
yeah, absolutely.
That's just become a morning thing, right? I always have that nice morning coffee, and it's always just right, So. Yeah, I have a thing for that. I won't lie about that.
That's awesome. They always say you got to start your morning off right. You just start your morning off the right way. It sets you in the right tone for the rest of the day. So I love it. You got your coffee as your ritual.
There you go.
Perfect.
And then you got one thing here I wanted to talk to you about because Mike and I went over this and we couldn't figure it out. So I'm sure you're going to clarify for us. But travel obscura.
Well, just places that people don't normally obscure as it sounds, right?
Yeah,
so just places people don't usually think about going to, right?
Okay.
Like you go to some country and you don't go to all the tourist traps, so you go to them, but then you spend most of your time somewhere else, right? So I tend to, wherever I go, look up the things that people don't really tend to go to, right? The hidden gems or the places that the locals know.
Yeah.
Because that I feel is a more authentic representation of wherever you're going, right? Not where all the tourists go and where all the tourist traps are, but the authentic country, right? The authentic country. So, for example,
agree.
right? Like when people go to Europe, they think, oh, Germany, France, Italy, those kind of countries, right? But I find Romania was probably my favorite country in Europe. And people are like, what? Romania? So it's off the beaten path kind of things, right? That's kind of what I mean by that, right?
Okay.
And that's very cool. I mean, again, that's probably part of I know you love your speculative fiction, and that may be part of that whole vision that you've got of being out and being creative in that way with your traveling too. That's very cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. And then, of course, we have to talk about it because you're wearing the shirt. You're representing the badge here. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So paramedicine, emergency medicine. How in hell did you ever get into that?
Well, it's a bit of a weird story, I guess, right? I never thought of doing it up until I pretty much applied for it. It was almost a off the cuff decision, really. So as my bio says there, here's another part of it is I had no idea what I wanted to do when I went out of high school, right?
Yeah,
so I went to university. I did what my dad did, right? My dad was in business, so I did business. I did commerce. But it was never really I found it was never something I actually liked, right? I didn't enjoy it. And after graduating and, getting a feel for that, I just found it wasn't for me, right? I didn't find any meaning or purpose or satisfaction from it. So, but the one thing that one of the good things that came out of university was I met one of my mentors, who is still my mentor today, actually, Dr. Walter Pershaw. So he's probably one of the best professors I've ever had, if not the best. And
why is that?
He's the guy that, he, unlike most professors I find, the way he ran his class was much more student-centered, right? It wasn't about throwing information at you. It was about creating a forum of ideas, right? And I don't want to go too much into it, but he really whipped us into shape in a positive sense, right?
Right.
In terms of okay, like trying to bring out what's best in us and trying to inspire us and encourage us to actually make a change, right? Because we're inheriting one hell of a world, right? We're inheriting a lot of prospects, but also a lot of issues, right? And the whole purpose of his teaching was to really just help equip and inspire the generation that's going to be taking over, right? So, and one of the things one of the lights he turned on for me was medicine in general. So that just was at the back of my mind for a while. And after discovering, commerce and business wasn't for me, I was looking through college programs, and I also wrote the MCAT, did bad at it, didn't get in anywhere, obviously. And but I also applied to colleges at the same time, right? So I had disaster management, I had English, I had acting on there. And then I was looking at the list and I'm like, oh, paramedic. I just selected it like okay, I'll toss that on there, And I got accepted at Georgian College for that. And of all the things I selected, I'm like, you know what? Yeah, let's go for that. And from there on, I didn't really look back. Wow. So really, it's weird just how things work out sometimes, right?
You talk about your story there about what your dad was and you were following in the footsteps. How many people we've had on this podcast, and it's the same thing. They end up, here's where you're going to be. And they kind of put you into this little hole where you're supposed to go, your box. This is the box you're going into. Yeah. And it's so cool that you actually said, no, I'll try it. Absolutely. But it's not where I want to be. And
it felt like being a peg, like a circular peg,
sure,
trying to be fit into a square hole, right? It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
But
definitely.
That's a lot of it.
And I know a lot of the people involved with the program there at Georgian with the paramedic program. Very reputable course taught by some great people. You obviously enjoyed yourself and did well enough to get out the other side, right?
Yeah, well, as you say, right? Excellent faculty, excellent teachers, right? I know Rob Terrio was there. Yep. You know Rob, right?
Oh, I know Rob was there. Yeah, very well.
Yeah. So Rob was there teaching most of our theory when I was there. He was a fun guy, but especially I'd say in the lab, the medics who were in the lab. So shout out to Julia Young and Steve Prophet, especially. They're both Simcoe medics, but they were outstanding.
Very cool.
And that makes the experience, right? Is the people who teach you and the people who take you through the scenarios and the tough parts, right? So absolutely.
Good stuff.
Absolutely.
And then from once you graduated, did you do just like every other paramedic, apply to like every service in Ontario, or did you just want to work in Simcoe?
I applied to a few. I applied to Waterloo, got nowhere. I applied to Guelph. I applied to York. I actually wrote out in York, and then I applied to Simcoe as well. And I got offers from York, Simcoe, and Guelph. But just with how things worked out, and again, it's a bit of a long story I won't go into, but I ended up going with Simcoe at the end of the day.
Nice.
Great choice. Good service. That service has grown an awful lot from where it was back when I started into the whole paramedicine world and where it is today. It's just growing, and it's not that it wasn't a good service back then. It's just it's grown into a pretty big entity now, and it's a great service. A lot of good people associated with that whole service up there. So
and I'd say it's the best thing about it has been the medics who work there. I'd say.
Okay.
All other things aside, right? It's been the people that I've worked with every day. That's been the biggest highlight, I think, of Simcoe.
So what makes that? What's the, you make the generalized statement of the medics are there, but what about the medics? What is it that they do that makes your job more enjoyable?
It's much of it's an intangible thing, right? It's just the feeling you get, the feeling of camaraderie or the culture that the medics have with each other, right? But be it the trust, be it the friendliness, the openness as well, right? But basically, you're always feeling like people are supporting you, people got your back, and that you can really trust your partner most of the time, right? Like you're, especially when you're working with different people every day, right? Like I work with different people all the time as a part-timer, right? So, but I find just the interpersonal quality has been very, very warm, very welcoming, and very conducive, I think, of good teamwork and effective teamwork as well.
I know there's a great group of people up there, and it's really refreshing for me to hear that, you really enjoy going to work every day because the people there, the medics that are there, the support staff, because this is a tough job that you're doing. It's a really tough job. And to go in to doing that job each and every day to a place that you really don't want to be there or you don't care about it? You know, with paramedicine, much like working as a police officer, a firefighter, a nurse, like you've got to want to do this job. You have to go to work every day wanting to be there, not necessarily wanting to go see tragedy at its worst. Yeah. It's just you want to be there to do whatever you can to help out. So, that's that's a very rewarding experience to be able to go to work every day in a place that you're surrounded by great people. So good for you. That's very fortunate.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Very fortunate.
I feel very fortunate for having stumbled into that. Really.
Yeah.
Well, and again, that's one of the things you talked about. Your professor there at York University, was he the one that inspired you to go down the medical lane?
I would say yes. He planted the idea in my head. Really did.
Wow.
So
he saw something in you then.
I suppose that's it, yeah. But he's the kind of professor where if there's something in someone, he'll find it and he'll exploit it, right? Cool. Like he'll bring it out. He's an ex-military guy, but very, very cool guy though. I'm actually going to see him on the weekend and have a meal together before I head out. So
very cool. But before you head out, we'll get into that too. I wanted to ask earlier, how old are you?
Just turned 29 a few days ago.
Wow, okay. Because here you are, because we're going to get into the next. This is you're heading back to school again.
Yeah. Oh well.
And that's very cool. I mean, because
no, it is.
No, absolutely. Because I mean, you're still continuing to follow your passion, and Bryan, we can take us down that path, maybe.
Yeah. So you're, you wrote the MCAT, didn't go well, first time around, and
sucked at it.
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
That's straight up. Yeah.
No.
Really bad one. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So good.
You're off to Dublin, Ireland.
Yes, I am.
What's that all about?
So I rewrote the MCAT again in 2021. So last summer I did that again, and I got a pretty dang good score on it.
Yeah.
I guess not good enough for Canadian schools, but they are pretty difficult to get into. Mm-hmm. So, but I applied to several in Ireland as well, and I got into UCD in Dublin. So one of my coworkers is actually over in Limerick studying there as well. So I also have that angle to it too, as I know someone who's over there and doing it at this time too.
Perfect. That helps. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does. So he's another Simcoe medic who's out there doing that. So
wow,
feels kind of nice to be not the only Simcoe medic across the pond doing that, right?
Very good. Something in the water up there in Simcoe. Everybody's going to Dublin, Ireland. So yeah.
So what's the focus going to be?
The focus of
school. What do you? What's the total focus? What are you taking?
You mean for what I want to? Yeah. Well, it's med school, but I mean, you mean
so what do you want to do when you come out of that? You're talking med school, but what's your real focus when you come out of there?
Well, that will depend largely on how I find the rotations, right? Mm-hmm. I know right now emergency medicine is very interesting to me because that's what I've been doing, but who knows? We'll see how I like obstetrics. We'll see how I like, all these other things that I encounter there, right?
Right.
So, but right now, certainly I like the idea of doing emergency in some capacity because that's what I've been doing here, and I still like that, the pace of it, as it were, and the nature of the job in emergency medicine.
There you go. I like it.
Yeah.
We're, so how long are you over in Ireland for?
So that's 4 years, and then I'll do residency back here.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
And the reason I asked is my son-in-law he went to University of Waterloo here, took 4 years of sciences, and then went over to University of Leeds and did his doctorate over there. But he came back and chose to be a physiotherapist, and he could have done whatever he wanted. So that's why I wonder what your focus was and what your real passion was. Because, I mean, there's so many different directions you can go. And he absolutely loves it. He was a exceptional basketball player and things like that. So he really wanted to stay focused on the sports side of things. So physiotherapy is what he really wanted to do. And he's got a great couple practices, couple clinics now. So yeah, it's doing really well. So no, I was more interested about, okay, you're going over there for 4 years and you're going to come back and do what? So that's cool. I love it. Yeah, it's I mean, and that changes over the 4 years. Like I said, right now, emergency thing is really a focus and kind of an exciting thing. But it's in the same breath, as you get through into your fourth year, you may focus on something else. So good for you. No, that's awesome. I'm very proud of you for making that decision. So many already at age 29, they feel like they're stuck in a place that they're never going to grow and never going to get where they want to be. And I love people that break down barriers and have no fear to take a step and say, you know what, I'm going to make this move. So kudos to your professor for seeing that in you. I always love when there's somebody that sees something in us that we don't even see ourselves. That's very cool. So congrats.
Yeah.
Hey, that sounds like a lot of
Thank
fun.
you.
We'll have to get you back on, or maybe get him to come on from Dublin.
Maybe from
As long as you don't have a crazy accent.
Yeah.
Well, no, I think I'll keep my accent. It's hard to lose it.
Yeah.
But I might have a Guinness in my hand, though. I might have.
There you go.
Shoot, we got Guinness in the fridge. We
Yeah,
should
we
have
could-
a couple Guinness with us.
Ah, you should have.
Yes.
It does taste better over there.
Absolutely.
Than before.
Yeah,
It does.
they've got it figured out.
Yes, they do. I used to fly into to Ireland quite a bit. We used to fly into both Dublin, but Galway. We used to go in there with when I did emergency medevac stuff with Sky Service. So I went over with a critical care transport team, and those were the two places that we went into all the time. I used to just and a funny ass story. I just a little bit of a segue here, but the first time I was going to Ireland, I had this grandiose idea about what was going to happen, and I swear to God, this actually did happen. So we come down out of the clouds, and we're landing in Galway, just a little wee airport, and we get it, and it's just. Well, it's the Emerald Isle. Like, just the green color was just spectacular. But we landed, it was a little bit cloudy out in the whole bit. And so we landed, we taxi up, and I'm even laughing thinking about it. But I opened the hatch on the Learjet and put the ladder down. And here's a guy standing down at the bottom of the ladder. He was about 3 feet tall, and he wasn't dressed up. He looked just like a leprechaun.
I was going to say.
And I looked out and I go, it's true.
There are leprechauns in Dublin.
Oh, he was such a great guy, though. It makes me laugh.
Nice.
Anyways, no, you leave the 31st, August 31st?
Yep. That's when I head over.
Nice. So you putting paramedicine obviously on the shelf? Like, is Simcoe giving you a leave, or are you parting ways, or what's happening?
So I've got a leave of absence, so I can come back in start of June. Start of June, I can come back and do a few things to make sure I can still practice on the road. But again, my colleague did that too. He came back, worked over the summer, went back again. So that's what I'll do too.
Okay, cool.
So I know you did loved your reading of that, but you've also done some writing. So you're going to continue to do some writing while you're away?
Oh yeah, always. You have to shoot me to keep me from doing that. I'm not stopping.
So
That's awesome.
Let's talk about that. You've got some awards here with your writing, and that's one of the steps in your life here. Talk to us about your writing and what you've accomplished.
Where do you want me to start?
That's a start.
That's quite a big one. So, well, to write anything, right? You got to read first, right? So you got to be a reader before you can even hope at writing anything, right?
Okay.
So that's the number one there with that, right?
Right.
So if you can't read, what's the point of writing? So
Okay.
The reading inspires you to write.
it inspires you, and you learn a lot of how to write just from being exposed to reading, right? If you've read lots of books, you kind of get some intuitive sense of how to create one as well. Not all of it, but a lot of it. So yes, that's where it started. Was I loved reading. I loved all this fantasy fiction and science fiction and all the adventure you have by writing a story, right? Or reading a story, right? And then one day it just popped in my head, why not write things too? So actually, funny way it started was one of my favorite authors. The way he ended the series, I didn't like the way the author finished things, so I wrote my own version of it. I posted it online in like a forum where people share that kind of stuff, and people liked it, and people started commenting on it, and I had people that were following it. And basically, when you reach that point where you realize you can write something and people will actually read it and will actually enjoy it. So, and most of all, though, it was a lot of fun creating it. So that's when it sort of started. Nice. And after doing that for a little bit, I realized, why not just, write my own stuff? So I started doing that, and for a few years, just bumbled around, writing things that sucked, and being a bit too gung ho with it, right? Like writing a novel and not actually revising it and self-publishing it, and realizing, wait a second, that's not how you should do it. But basically the trial and error of learning, and so I just kept doing that up until like maybe 2018, and then I started writing short stories and more long-form fiction, and eventually I started submitting to magazines and contests as well, and then that brings us more to today, where I won second place in the Writers of the Future contest, which is a pretty big one out of the States, in Los Angeles, which is a very big speculative fiction contest for newer writers. So I won second place in that in the first quarter of volume 39. and it's a pretty big deal.
I was going to say, how many participants?
Thousands and
I was going to say there'd have to be thousands. Yeah, wow, congratulations.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
awesome.
So yeah, there's 4 quarters of it. There's 3 winners every quarter. The winners get published in the anthology, and of course you get paid for it too, at a professional rate. And you go to their big awards gala conference thing in Los Angeles as well. So it's pretty fun. It's a fun time. That has really signified to me that I can learn how to write better, I can get better, and ultimately I can create stories that people like to read. And that's what it's really been about from the start, is just being a storyteller, and just sharing those stories with others, right?
That's
so
awesome.
It's been just like with the medicine, right? It's been a weird journey of just figuring things out and eventually arriving at a point where you realize, hey, you know what, I can do this, and why not go further?
Mm-hmm. You know, I started a program a number of years ago called Stand Strong, and it was for teen mental health, and it was where we built a community, and we had a couple young ladies that they're now in university, and they're almost done university, but most people, you know, when they're going through an issue, they'll listen to music that'll bring them back to that space. So they'll just sit in silence, or, you know, there's something that they maybe go to the gym or something like Brian loved to do. But the two of them love to write and draw cartoons and characters to go with their stories. And they both turned out brilliant. So I love that was your escape, your place to go. And that's what it was for them too. It kind of put them in this fantasy world that, you know, nobody else was there. It was just them in their head and in their heart. And you talked about how you really hope that you can inspire others to do the same. And I think you're truly going to do that. So good for you.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
That's awesome. A doctor that writes fantasy.
Well, you know, why not? Why not?
I love it.
I find, you know what, like I find that just the more I do, the better I can convey the human condition, I guess, in writing as well, right?
Yeah.
You know, the more I experience, and being a paramedic has really exposed me to a lot of that.
Oh,
you know?
for sure.
So
yeah, man. Oh, man.
I think it's maybe just a more mature writer and a more mature person in general, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Good for you. Congratulations. That's awesome.
No, it is. It's pretty awesome. And I love, you know, as you said, Mike, at the bottom here, and Spencer, you wrote that you're just hoping that your writing just inspires others. And that's all we're really trying to do with this podcast, is just inspire people to tell their story, live their story, because they've lived it.
And break down. Don't be afraid of the barriers that hold you back. People are always so afraid to step through that barrier because they're going to be judged. You know, we all thought we'd get through COVID here, where we'd be tighter knit and we'd be, you know, more more outgoing and things, because we were locked up for 2 years. And people have really got this big shield in front of them, man. They're just they're afraid to be judged, and they're afraid to step out. And we just want to reach out and tell people, you know what, go follow what's in your heart and soul.
As we do with the podcast all along, you've really answered a lot of it. But I mean, what's next, man? What's next for you?
Well, a few things. So obviously, I'm going to give med school my best. You know, so I will see what goes of that, see what comes of that, and all the trials and lessons and the joys and pleasures and pains, of course, that are involved with the process. So I'll throw myself into that and give it my best shot and see where that goes.
Awesome.
Be it emergency medicine or something completely different.
Yeah.
I'm going to see that through and, you know, see where that path takes me. But at the same time, obviously the writing is a high priority as well. So that's always going to be something I devote time to no matter what. And I'll see where that goes as well. So I have a few books in the works. I'm finishing the first draft of a urban fantasy novel that I've been working on. So I'll be sending that out to readers in a little bit to get some feedback. And I've also got like 10 or 15 short stories I've got to work on too, or I'm in the process of sending out as well. So, I mean, there's always stuff on the go.
Busy guy. Have you got a website or anything, or any kind of link that you can, like an Instagram, a social media page that we can send people to follow you?
Yeah, well, I'm not too into social media, but you know, I have a Facebook page and I use Twitter, and I've got a personal website that's basically just my full name .net. You know, SpencerSekulin.net, and I just have everything on there. So I've got some blog articles, I've got my writing, you know, stuff on there. I've got some voice acting stuff on there, because I do voiceovers too. Yeah. A little bit. Yeah. It's for fun, but I do some of that too. Yeah. So everything's kind of just on there, and I just throw it there just to keep everything organized.
Sure.
So if you want to, you can
we'll
share
throw that link down in the bottom of the podcast when it goes out. We'll definitely throw it down there. Love the people, because there's going to be people that are going to want to, especially like I say, a couple of these young ladies that I know that are writers and drawers and that, they're going to definitely want to jump in and see what you're doing, because they're right up that same alley. So that's so cool. They're going to love it. Awesome. Brian.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me along, dragging me along. Spencer, it's been our pleasure to have you on.
Yeah,
your story is amazing. Seriously, it's I think it's inspiring, inspirational to those people, as you just said, coming out of college or university in whatever program, they were supposed to go in that hole right there, and just decided, no, that's not me at all. And you were brave enough, as Mike said, to venture out. You went down the world of paramedicine with no rhyme, reason, effort behind it.
No rhyme or reason. No.
Yeah. It's awesome. It's completely awesome. And obviously you've done quite well working for the service that you are. And now you're on to bigger and better things. And we really appreciate your time. Thanks for being on. And
best of luck.
Can we have you
on at the end of the month?
Can we have you on from Ireland?
Sure, we'll see if I can carve that out, but absolutely, I'd be open to that.
That'd be cool. I'd like to hear what it's all about, how it's going over there.
Yeah. So thanks for having me on here too. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
and
no problem.
I appreciate your time as well. So thank you for that.
Awesome.
All right, sir. Thank you.
As we always say, thanks for hanging out with us tonight, and peace.
Yeah, we'll see you later.
We're out of here.
Thanks
Take
a lot.
care.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.